friends, welcome back to Stories with Jules, my little corner of the internet here. Today I thought it would be really fun to go through some of my physical books. For 2025, I really wanted to read books I already owned or books on my backlog that I have had on my TBR or my want to reads for quite a while. I thought it would be fun to go through some of them as I have stacks here, and not all of them. This isn't all of them. These are just some of my favorites that I have read and the ones that I would like to share with you. I thought I would just do a brief "you will enjoy this read if you maybe like this" to just give a little bit of context on if you should add it to your TBR, or if it is on your TBR, how high up it should be, as I really appreciate when I see videos like that. Let's get into some of these books. Brandon Sanderson has been on my TBR, I want to say, for at least 5 years. He's actually been quite an intimidating author for me to want to read, only for me to read this and find out it was very digestible, as I have read quite a bit of fantasy now. So this was actually so fun. Very early on in the opening chapters, you are told the lay of the land, the world, and the power structure, and the management of the lesser people and the grounder people, and who has magic and who doesn't, and why, and then how the magic works. So I appreciate that, the info dumping pretty early, and then throughout as well. When you start a new series, for me, part of starting a new series is like, can I just know the first 100 pages on like how this world even operates, especially fantasy worlds? And I just already know the world building, and so I like that Brandon did not hesitate in giving us that information. This, you are following a very strong FMC. There is a little bit of romance, but it is definitely a subplot. There is so much political intrigue and so much political strategy, conversations, debating, a lot of that. This is also, like I said, quest. But I think you will enjoy this book also if religion and darker themes, slavery and how slaves can be treated isn't too triggering for you, as this is definitely a darker world, how lesser individuals, or they're not lesser individuals, but people who perceive them to be lesser, are treated. I have finished all 3 of these, so 3 off my long TBR list. And I can't wait to read more from Brandon because I really enjoyed his writing. Let's talk about a woman author now, and one of my favorites, which is Rachel Gillig. And I love this cover. It's so pretty. This is The Night and the Moth, and technically I got this on my shelf in May. It's not been on my shelf for that long. This is part 1 of her new duology, The Stonewater Kingdom. I am right, I just had to check. So this is gothic. It is very much eerie, fairy tale, enchanting. It does have romance, and the banter in this is so good. If you are looking for a book that has top tier banter, this is really the book for you. Our main character in this is more of like a quiet strength, but she is still very resilient. So our main character is a dreamer, or she has visions. They call them dreams. They come to her as like a prophet asking for like their future, and she is required to give it to them because of her environment. She is one of like 6 or 7 sisters that has to do what she does, and her sisters start going missing. So now she's looking for her sisters, and so then this also becomes a quest, and they're also looking for omens and magical beings on a search to help find her sisters. Side characters in this I also really enjoy. Rachel's writing in general is just so refreshing and unique and just different. And when you read a lot of books, that is something I am always searching for, is something that stands out and just sets itself apart from other fantasy worlds, and Rachel is really good at doing that. This is good if you want to dip your toes into gothic and you want a darker, spookier setting that isn't too scary. I would also recommend this if you want fantasy with romance, but the romance isn't the main plot. And then I also would recommend this, or think you would enjoy this, if you like a little bit of humor with your books, as our side character especially is such a funny little guy, and I think that the humor helps with more of the darker elements. This is also a mystery. Let's move to talking about dragons. Onyx Storm, this is book 3 in the Empyrean or the Fourth Wing series. I personally really enjoyed Onyx Storm so much more than Iron Flame. This might be my favorite of the series. I would need to reread Fourth Wing to do a fair comparison, but boy, I loved this book. I really like how we get an expansion of the side characters or the other characters besides just our main character Violet. I like how we get extra or new points of view. I also really enjoy how we're outside of just the academic dragon school and we're actually getting to see more of the world and see more of the continent and more of the other leaders, as we haven't really seen that until this book. I also think our main character does a lot of growing in this book and I really liked that. I will say Xaden is not my favorite male main character. While I don't think he is the worst out there, I don't know. I just don't really like him and how he treats Violet. I know so many people like him and there are moments that I do enjoy him. I just find him really controlling and I'm someone that I need a lot of freedom in my relationship and I know that his controllingness comes from a good place. I just could never. So it's hard for me when I'm reading the romance to be like, oh yeah, when me, myself, I would not go for that. I also just love our dragons and how they communicate and again the humor that we get. I just really love how they are able to communicate with their riders and again just more context that we get to the dragons in this. We just got so much more and I really appreciated that. So if you haven't picked up Onyx Storm because you didn't really like Iron Flame, I would still say to give it a try. If you did not like Fourth Wing or Iron Flame, then I would say to probably just go ahead and pass, and this series probably isn't for you. If you didn't like the first 2 books, that you're gonna like this one that much more. This is another fun one that I actually picked up this year, so it hasn't been on my TBR that long, but it's also really pretty. And let me show you what it looks like without the cover on. Look at the foiling. So pretty. And then I like the edges, but then inside, this is very much futuristic, more modern. They just have advancements in technology in this world, and one of our main characters is called an angel, and while she is a human, they have basically modified her to be a superhuman and have additional powers or technology that makes her go more than what an average body would be able to do. Our other main character is just a regular old human with no advancement. I would recommend this if you like the Hunger Games. This is queer, this is a sapphic love story, and it is YA. However, this I would say is dark, and while the Hunger Games definitely is dark and has a lot of grittier, harder scenes, this does too. The world we are set in here is dystopian and it is meant to break everyone that lives here except the tippy top of the food chain. Our angels, not only are they meant to go after and destroy our regular humans in like a tournament style, just like the Hunger Games, but they're also married off to old men. That's also like the child bride aspect can be a lot. I personally didn't find it too hard as it's supposed to be a darker world, so I was okay. But some people find this a little too hard. But again, this is gothic and dark and gritty. I think Ava does a really good job with complex themes. I think she does a really good job balancing the delicate nature of hard subjects while also giving us this vulnerability and showing us the strength and resilience that can come from these characters. I would recommend this if you like dystopian, if you like YA, if you like things that are queer, if you don't mind a darker world and you like a competition or a tournament styled competition. This is also set in a world where it rains all the time, so again, it's just a really hard environment. I would not recommend this if you cannot handle darker themes, especially toward children and directed toward children. This might not be for you. While on the topic of Ava Reid, these are 2 more Ava Reid books. This is A Study in Drowning and The Theory of Dreaming. The Theory of Dreaming came out this year, and I wanted to get the matching copy to go with A Study in Drowning. We're actually going to be talking about book 2. So book 2 I read off my physical TBR. Yay, me. I thought this was a really good conclusion to A Study in Drowning. I don't want to say too much about book 2 if you haven't read the first book, but this is dark academia. It is set at college. Our main character, Effie, is set in the architect program, and then this is Preston, and he is also in school, and they basically are different races in this world, and Preston is a lesser race than Effie, and so how he is treated in the world is different, as well as how she is treated. Is she's one of the only women in academia studies in college, and so how the professors as well as the other students treat her is really important. And again, I think Ava does a really good job of balancing darker themes and the brutality that comes with their own viewpoints of the world while still giving us such a beautiful story. I really appreciate when books are able to do that and when authors are able to do that. So I would recommend this duology for people who can handle harder topics like sexism as well as racism and dark academia, so studying very like conversations that are more analytical. I wouldn't recommend this if you don't like more thought-provoking and you want to turn your brain off more with reading. At least the dark academia books, I find I have to pay attention, and that is what you have to do with these. I also really like that these have folklore and the superstitions that we get in this. I really also like the added element of that, and is there a fairy king, is there not a fairy king, are there fae, are there not fae, and just like the fairy tale, kind of like The Night and the Moth, I really like enchanting stories. I just want to show y'all while I have them how pretty they are. So this is A Study in Drowning. I love this. And then the inside pages are also so pretty. I love the blue and then the sprayed edges with all the books. And then this is A Theory of Dreaming. So they are similar, but a little darker. And then also on the side. And then the edges, so you can see they go together, which is really cute. One is more Effie and one is more Preston. And then the inside pages are similar, but a little different of a pattern. So a little lighter of a subject now. We're going to talk about What the River Knows and Where the Library Hides. This is also a duology. I read this in the summertime. I got these for my birthday in February, but they have been on my want to reads for years and years. So I'm so glad I actually got these on sale, so they weren't that much for hardcovers, which is nice as hardcovers are expensive. What the River Knows, you are following our main character who goes to Egypt because her parents are in Egypt, as they are researchers and they're constantly looking for things. Her parents are missing and or dead, and so she goes to visit her uncle who is in Egypt to figure out what happened to her parents, as well as now that she's 18, she wants her dowry and to have her own life. But when she gets to Egypt, she gets swept up with the life that is happening there, as well as a handsome British soldier that is there helping her uncle, who is employed by her uncle, who she cannot stand, but is very handsome. And then book 2 is following, because it becomes a mystery. One ends and she is continuing on with British soldier as well as her uncle, who wants her to go back home, but she doesn't want to go back home. And so I love how spirited our main girl is, and I really liked doing this immersively. And the audiobook, our narrator is able to do the Spanish, and I really liked the accent or the dialect that we had with this. It really just brought it to life for me. But going through the tombs, just all the researching that they did in the desert, I really enjoyed these for summer. These I think you would like if you like movies like The Mummy, or you like books set more in the desert and you want a romantic twist to it. This did have some high stakes or some mystery, but overall, because the writing is so lyrical, never was super stressed because the writing was just so pretty. I would recommend you read these in the summertime when you want desert themed, Egyptian themed, just like a good found family love story to read. And it only being 2 books is nice. Back with another Gothic book because I love my Gothic books. This is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews, which is a standalone, and I love the end pages and just the green, and then the back of the book just gives all the vibes. Look at that. Oh, so creepy. This is Gothic with horror. This is a little creepier than A Study in Drowning or even Fable for the End of the World, as again it has a more horror, darker element in that regard. You're dealing with monsters in the woods, and the woods are coming to life. Our main characters, Thomas and Andrew, and this is academia. They are away at a boarding school, and the woods around the school is coming to life, or we think it's coming to life. We're not really sure. Thomas's brain seems a little unreliable. There are illustrations in the book. Such creepy goodness. It's not too creepy. I think you could still read it if you like things a little darker. I don't think it is too bad. I could not eat this up fast enough. I finished this in less than 24 hours. I want to say I finished it in a day. It's also not that big of a book, but it was so good. I rated this 5 stars, and I actually cannot wait to read. C.G. Drews has a new book coming out, and I'm looking forward to reading that as well because I was so impressed. This is dark academia. This is queer. It's also YA. Set at a school. It is a mystery. Things are happening with monsters or alive in the woods and are starting to attack students or the school, or we're not really sure. So if you like books like that, then this is a must read for you. Red Rising. So I technically have read all 6 books that are out. These up here, I just didn't want to pull them all down because they're heavy. But I have read all the way through Lightbringer, and these were on my to be read since 2021, if not longer. And I got these really pretty hardbacks for Christmas from my brothers, and so I was reading 1 book a month. The bigger books, Dark Age and Lightbringer, probably took me closer to 2 months as I'm reading other books in between, and there are such heavy themes in this book, as well as I want to drag it out because I don't want the story to be over while we wait for Red God. Really enjoyed this. I partly put it off for so long because I knew that I wouldn't be able to read it again for the first time, but Pierce is such a brilliant writer. The first, 6 chapters, I was hooked. I instantly knew where we were in Mars. I instantly knew what the planet looked like, a dystopian structure. So I understood that the reds were at the bottom and people that are gold are at the top, and why that is, and that we want something different. And we're following Darrow, who is a red, who is trying to make that happen. This had such good, strong themes, some of the best found family. Romance is like a subplot, but the romance that we get is so good. Pierce writes about love and gives us love, and not just romantic love, but brotherhood love, or we fought together, and just friendships. And I really also like how they show us the behind the scenes of planning for war and choosing that there is no right decision to make and how we decide to make that decision. This is sci-fi. I do think that if you like fantasy, you should also read this and give it a try, as I think that a lot of the themes in this are very similar to fantasy. And if you like fantasy and you haven't tried sci-fi, I still think that this is a really strong contender for you to enjoy. I do think that the only reason I wouldn't recommend this is if you are intimidated by space and feeling like you won't understand how vast it is, even though we do get a map and we slowly get more each book. So even that I feel like isn't too intimidating. And then the amount of characters, a lot of them are related and family, and you also get a list of them at the front of the book to follow who is related to who. So that might sound intimidating, but to me it was just helpful. I would recommend this to almost anyone, and I would say to at least read Red Rising and Golden Sun book 2 before you decide if you really like the series or not, as book 1 is more academia and Darrow figuring out how to integrate himself into the world so he can destroy it, and then book 2 we actually really take off. And then the last book I wanted to talk about today was Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I did get this year. This was released in June. It was such a strong anticipated read for me. I could not wait wait to get my hands on this. I love V. Swab, and I could not wait to read her new book. This is about lesbian vampires. It's also about queer, gay, and just regular vampires. There's a good mix of everything in here. This follows 3 different women in 3 different timelines with 3 different vampires. I really liked the different timelines. I really appreciate how this is more of a character study and up close and personal for why people do the things they do and the reasons that they do the things they do. I really like to see all the different aspects of human, or in this case, vampire behavior. And so I would recommend this if you are okay with a journey and not knowing the answers until the end for some of your questions. And if you are okay with 3 different points of view, I would also recommend you do this immersive. For the audiobook, there were 3 different narrators, one for each woman, and that really helped with immersiveness as well. This is also gothic, so I just love the darker themes that this has. Feeling more historical fiction and going through the time and the different decades was a really unique experience as well. If you like vampires, if you like strong characters, if you like not the healthiest behavior in all the relationships because we are old cranky vampires that are now controlling, if you like diversity, that this would be a really good book for you. I would say if you need really fast pace and you don't really like character study and you like more like magic system strong or more just political intrigue, more we're going to war, that this probably isn't for you. Let me know in the comments if you read any of these as well, and what was one of your favorite books to read in 2025 that was on your physical TBR. And thanks for hanging out with me today. I will see you on the next one here soon. But if you like books like this, then feel free to subscribe, and I'm so happy you're here.